Hello, everyone. We are talking about asylum today. This week, there was a big uproar across the web. Trump said that he was demanding that asylum seekers pay for their asylum application. And human rights advocates were outraged. People online were discussing this. The UN even issued a statement. And today we're going to talk about that and how it might impact you. I'm Raluca Hanea. I provide immigration, estate planning, and family law services to my clients, and I have an office in Lawrenceville, Georgia. My marketing and office manager, Nina Clear, is here with me, and we thank you so much for all your likes, shares, and comments as they help others to see our videos.
Okay, so first, tell us about this memo.
Sure. The president issued it on April the 29th, 2019, to the Attorney General and the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. The subject specifically was additional measures to enhance border security and restore integrity to our immigration system. This is a direct quote from the memo. So there were 4 proposals that he requested from those to whom the memo was directed, as well as additional direction to the DHS secretary to move staff around as needed.
Will you tell us what each of the 4 proposals are?
Yes. Number 1, which is Section 3, Part A of the memo, says that those who meet positive fear determination should be placed in proceedings under 8 CFR 208.2C1 and 8 CFR 1208.2C1, and those who do not should be placed in proceedings under 8 CFR 208.2C2 and 12082C2. CFR stands for Code of Federal Regulations.
And what does that mean?
It is referring to the law that governs where asylum cases are heard and which authority has jurisdiction.
Okay, so the memo, people keep saying, oh, he's making people pay for asylum, but really the memo hasn't changed anything.
No, not yet.
And can you explain what is required for someone to be granted asylum?
Yes, and we did have a video before about that if you want to check that out too. So the person has to prove that they have a credible fear of persecution or torture.
Okay, and then you said there's 4 parts about what he's asking in his memo. So what is he asking?
So Part B asks for them to establish proceedings so that anyone seeking asylum has final adjudication within 180 days.
Okay, and we can all laugh at that suggestion right now, right?
Yes, it does seem unbelievable.
And tell everybody why that is.
Well, there are currently 120,000.
800, right?
I'm sorry, that is 820,000 asylum application pending. So the average wait time is 2 years, but many are waiting right now 5 to 7 years for a final adjudication. Okay. So he's asking for those cases to be, resolved in 180 days.
Right.
Which is actually in the law. They are supposed
to. It is. Okay, so, but what he's saying is that they must have final adjudication. So not even just their credible fear hearing.
Yes.
But final adjudication in 180 days, that's 6 months. And, but that, based on that we're 820 applications behind, that seems pretty unreasonable, right? Yes. Okay, so where does the fee come in that everybody's been talking about?
That is in Part C. He asks them to establish a fee, not to exceed the cost of adjudication for both the asylum application and for employment authorization.
And when we say them, what we're saying is because this memo is directed at the Attorney General and the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security,
That's right.
who's the acting secretary. He has not yet been put in place by Congress, but he's saying, I want you to do this as part of your job.
That's right.
Okay. And right now, when people apply for asylum, they do not pay a fee, right?
Yes. No, there is no fee. And although we are allowed to charge a fee under the law, but we also made a pact.
And when we say we mean the United States.
United States, yes.
Okay.
United States also made a pact after the World War II that we would never turn away people who were fleeing from a situation that would cause their death.
And why is that?
Because the U.S. turned away thousands of Jews, and then 6 million of them died during the World War II in the Holocaust.
Okay, so back to the memo. People who seek asylum, they can't even apply for an employment authorization right when they enter the U.S., right? So they come in, they say, I'm afraid I'm going to be killed or whatever, and let me work. No, that doesn't happen.
No, and that's right. They must be here for 150 days before they can apply for an employment authorization.
Okay, and then once they apply, the application, it's not immediate, right? For a lot of people, the EADs are taking 5 to 7 months.
Yes.
To be processed, to be approved, generally.
Yes, that's true. Yes, the application takes 5 to 7 months, and the government is supposed to give anyone who applied for asylum an employment authorization within 30 days of their application.
Okay, so that would be like 180 days from when they got here. They're supposed to get employment authorization.
Yes.
And what is the current fee to apply for employment authorization? And this is just USCIS charges.
Yes, and this is just as of today because they can change these fees at any time. So as of today, it is $495. It's $410 for the filing and $85 for biometrics, and that means having your fingerprints taken.
And that's for anyone 14 and above, right?
Yes.
Okay. So they have to have their fingerprints taken, right?
Yes.
And that fee, that $495, is usually waived if you're an asylum seeker, right?
Yes. That's right. And if they are granted asylum, they are given an unrestricted Social Security card, which allows them to work, and without having to have an employment authorization card issue. And ideally, their asylum would be granted within 180 days, and they would get their Social Security card and not need the employment authorization card.
But that's ideally and is not reality, because we said we have those 820,000 applications pending. Okay. And in this memo, it did not in any way suggest what the fee would be for the asylum application, right?
Yes, we don't know, but imagine for a moment if you're fleeing your home due to fear of death, if you would have money to pay for an application and to live in an unfamiliar country for up to 6 months without being able to work.
Right. Like, we can't even imagine sitting here in our air-conditioned, comfortable office, people who are having their homes bombed, or people getting their kids getting gang raped, put into gangs, being threatened all the time, and they're racing for their lives. And then they have to come to the U.S., pay to get access to even say I'm an asylum seeker. And now I have to also wait 6 months to work, to have money, to get an apartment, to get food. And yet, how many people say, I don't want them coming here and living off of us? And they cannot apply for welfare. Yes. Right?
And I mean, for sure, they are in this desperate situation. That's what they're fleeing.
Right.
I don't think they flee because everything is
nice and beautiful and wonderful where they are. So it sounds like this administration is trying to make it impossible for anyone to seek asylum.
Yes, it does seem like that. Yes.
Okay, so what's the fourth section of the memo where he's asking for proposals?
That one is also concerning. The president asks for proposed regulations where asylum seekers cannot get employment authorization until their final adjudication. It also says that anyone who entered in the U.S. illegally previously and is now seeking asylum, they should not be given an employment authorization. Actually, this entire thing is concerning because under the guise of this national emergency, President Trump is trying to go around Congress, who establishes the immigration laws, and he's trying just to write his own law.
And it does sound like that. And if his policy went into effect, he is saying basically that he wants asylum seekers to live in the U.S. for 2+ years without being able to work legally. So that means for all you people who are like, don't let them live here and not pay taxes, they also wouldn't pay taxes because they're not able to work legally. I mean, we do have illegal workers who pay taxes, but it's more likely they probably wouldn't.
They probably wouldn't, yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So he's claiming they need procedures to process the adjudication in 180 days.
And if that happened by some miracle,
if that happens, he could argue that if they did that, people would work in 6 months.
But that's like the biggest
what's happening. Ever. Yeah, it's not what's happening right now.
Right. Okay. And then if they are not granted asylum, which we know the denials have increased since this administration, if they're not, what happens?
Well, in the same sections, he says that if they are denied asylum, they should immediately revoke the employment authorization if they got one and start removal proceedings against them.
So anything else in the memo?
Yes. Section 4 gives authority to relocate personnel from other areas to accomplish what he's asking them to do, as well as push for removals.
So he doesn't ask for a budget to hire more people. Okay, he's not saying we're backlogged in some areas by 5 to 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get more people working. He's like, you know what? You've already paid a fee, and you know you're going to have to wait 5 to 7 years to get this, but we're going to take those people working on your application and put them
work for the
asylum seekers.
For the asylum seekers.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Just trying to make
it
sure we're all
like
clear.
That. Yes, it does sound like
and
that.
And as far as we know, no other country requires an asylum seeker to pay a fee.
No, because these are people, again, who are fleeing for their lives. They're desperate. They're also following the law by coming to a country and saying, I have a reasonable fear, and the country must then determine if that is true.
So send me your downtrodden, your weary, all of that. just like, blow up the Statue of Liberty, because that's really not what he wants to do.
No.
Pretty much. Okay.
Yes.
So, and we all agree, none of us at all argue about the fact that there is an increase in asylum seekers, right?
Yes. But to propose a fee to stop that isn't a reasonable or humanitarian solution. How does anyone see it as being effective in stopping asylum seekers?
Right. Like I was telling you, I saw this person say, if you're in a burning house with your kids and someone blocks the doors and the windows, you're going to figure out a way to get out. You're not going to be like, sorry.
The way is going to be even more dangerous and more, it's probably going to be illegal. It's going to increase the people who are going to try to come here illegally.
Right.
And if you put this fee, it's just,
right. And
I don't think it solves the problem.
Right. So to remind people, this isn't yet a policy that's been put in place, right?
Right. He's giving them, the people that he sent this memo to, 90 days or 3 months to come up with the recommended policies. They will then need to be published, and they will have a time period for public comments and then adopted. So if you disagree with these policies, like he's suggesting be put in place, now is the time to let your representatives know. And you can also make comments when they're going to be posted by USCIS.
Okay, but critics are saying that this memo and the policies don't need congressional approval.
That's right. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, since the president declared a state of emergency on the border, he can establish these policies without congressional approval.
Okay, so people still should contact their representatives?
I think that anyone who agrees that every president, no matter who that person is, should be subject to the checks and the balances upon which the American system of government is based, and that should be all of us, regardless of our political affiliation or agreement or disagreement with this president. All of us should contact our representatives.
And to point out, there's been some polls taken since this memo came out, and the majority of Americans disagree with Trump's suggestion of making it harder for people to request asylum.
That's right. From every party, over 56% of people polled after this memo came out said that it should not be harder for people to seek asylum.
Okay. And a lot of political commenters think that this is merely a ploy by Trump, kind of building up to the 2020 election and making this a talking point for him.
I mean, he kept on doing this. I mean, he did this. But also in 2016, the Democrats failed to respond to almost everything he said about immigration. Across the board, every political commentator is saying that Democrats or others must come up with their own plan in response to what Trump says, rather than hoping people will realize how outrageous the things are that he says.
Right. So, and to add to that, if you are a registered voter and you disagree with his memo or any subsequent proposals, you must contact your elected representatives and let them know.
Right. And you cannot complain about policies if you made no effort to oppose them. That's what democracy means. If you don't participate in democracy, it's not a democracy.
Right.
Just a few people are going to decide for everyone else if you don't participate.
Right. So don't just be like a, internet warrior complaining about it. Get on the phone,
Yes,
tell your
just do
representatives.
Exactly.
And is there anything else that can be done?
If policies are put into effect, various immigration organizations have vowed that they will fight them in court. We know right now that many of the policies this administration has passed trying to limit asylum seekers have been stopped by court proceedings.
And we know there's also been an increase of troops at the border, right?
Yes, just this week, more troops have been deployed for the border and more Department of Defense attorneys.
Can the Department of Defense attorneys process asylum cases?
No, not under the current laws.
So we're not getting more people to handle this. We're moving people around and just trying to get asylum seekers to pay money.
Just take the people from green card applications processing, because they need to wait right now 3 years, and just move them to asylum. Yes, it's
frustrating for all of us.
Circle. Yes, and at this point, going back to the memo, at this point we don't know what will happen moving forward, but we will make every effort to keep you updated and in our videos and on our website, so that you understand any changes that might impact you or your loved ones. We really appreciate all your likes and comments. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us. We are always here to help. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.